Welcome to Ellie Chat. Your home for exclusive news and commentary on the internet's only podcast about Candlepin bowling. Brought to you by the Lords of Candlepin, Frank DeLuca and Rich Limone. Email the show at allychat.frankface.net. Now broadcasting from the heart of the Bay State, the host of Alley Chat, FrankFace.
Good evening, everyone. This is the inaugural episode, or podcast episode, should I say, of Alley Chat, the internet's only Candlepin bowling podcast. And I'm joined here. My name is FrankFace. I'm joined here with my good friend, Rich Limone.
How you doing, everybody? Let's
Welcome
get this
along.
show started.
Yeah, let's. We're going to get right into it. We're going to talk about the recent Pro Series event that occured in Nashua at Leda Lane's, the doubles knockout. Rich, you bowled in this event, didn't you?
I did.
How were the pins falling that day?
Well, it was interesting. You know, I had a real hard time in practice finding my spot, and I think I must have thrown 20 boxes, and I think I had one mark. I couldn't hit the head pin. I was just brutal.
Okay.
It was a very awful experience, and I was open the first two, and then I moved a couple of boards over, and then where I ended up, I found gold, and the pins started flying for me. I mean,
Which is kind of what you'd expect out of Leda, because we've seen it on TV so many times. And
I think Leda's a pretty fast house. I mean, it's honest.
Yeah,
gotta hit,
I'd agree
it's
with
just
that.
like any other place. You got to hit the head pin.
which side of the house did you bowl on?
We were on the low side, so 1 through 18.
Okay, which is opposite the TV side, if
Yes.
I remember correctly. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, I've bowled on that side before. I fared pretty well at 360 or something to qualify for the Kid Pro tournament. What we did see was some high scores. We saw a victory by a pair who wouldn't be that unexpected. I don't think they've ever bowled together before in a doubles event, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But Mark Ricci and Brian Fuller Jr. won the event. And from what I understand, there were some massive scores in the very last matchup.
Yeah, I mean, they hit 294 to win, and, you know, they had to beat a 274. I mean, that's a good score in its own right. 274 should win.
Yeah, that's
when you win in a doubles one string.
Right, and that's what you would call, Pro Series.
Absolutely.
Do you know who they did bowl?
In the finals, they bowled against Sean Morrison and Chris Sargent, who were the high seed. They were they qualified with a 1294.
Huge scores.
Yes, absolutely.
As you would expect out of Chris Sargent and Sean Morrison. Two very solid bowlers in their own right.
I mean, I like the fact that there were some really high-powered matchups in this particular bracket. I mean, you had one matchup that was Craig Holbrook and Bob Wickham against champions Chris Sacchetti and Dave Godwin.
Right. And, actually, if you think about it, both Godwin and Sacchetti, within the last year, are returning from injuries. Godwin had his accident, and Sacchetti, if I understand correctly, just had knee surgery. He just came back from knee surgery.
Yes.
But that didn't seem to faze him.
I think for him, in the knockout portion, I think it was too many strings.
Perhaps, yeah. I don't know exactly what Sacchetti's injury was, but I know it was knee surgery, which, I have a little bit of experience with that. It does take a toll on you. It becomes a burden after however many strings you can handle.
Yeah, it was the turnout was okay. I mean, there were 36 teams. You'd like to see more, but they're having a hard time getting the bodies to show up. And as I understand it, there were 5 teams that dropped out because of the snow.
And do you think there's other reasons other than the snow that they're just having a hard time? I know we've seen big turnouts in the past. The first year I bowled in the Pro Series was about 3 years ago, and I think there were about 120 guys at Pilgrim Lanes for that day. In fact, I threw something like a 614, didn't even qualify.
Yeah, and there weren't that many 600s at this event. I think there was 16.
Yeah, I suppose you'd expect more.
There was more than that. There was 21.
21, okay. Let's take a look at the bracket, Rich. We have Sean Morrison on the left side and Chris Sargent matching up against Jonathan Boudreau and Det Klein. Jonathan Boudreau and Det Klein have gone pretty deep into these doubles brackets before. If I'm not mistaken, they've gone to the finals. And in fact, the guys we were just talking about, Dave Godwin and Chris Sacchetti, have defeated them in the finals. I don't remember where that was.
That was at Metro.
It was at Metro,
Yeah.
okay. If I'm not mistaken, again, I think Sacchetti and Godwin went back to the finals at Woburn.
The double, that was last year.
Right.
Woburn, yes. They made the finals last year.
Mm-hmm.
But they also made the finals at Academy right before the Worlds, and they won it in Academy. Sacchetti. They knocked out T.J. DiPietro.
Oh, okay. I was aware of that, and that was just a week before the Worlds, right?
Yes.
Very good. So they've proven themselves time and again.
Yeah.
Next matchup, we have Mark Gregory, Jim and Jimbo Ayotte, both Academy bowlers. They defeated Scott Lapierre and Jeff Lapierre out of Maine. It looks as though Jim Ayotte with a big 146 carried his teammate Mark through that round.
They're former doubles champions, Jeff and Scott.
They are, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, it could have been random draw.
They were paired together in the second season of the Pro Series, and they won it.
Okay. You're seeing a lot of familiar names here. Next matchup, we have Craig Holbrook and Bobby Whitcomb. They made it by. They kind of just squeaked by Sacchetti and Godwin, beating him by 8 points. That's a good matchup, but not the high scores you'd expect to see out of all four of those guys. It looks like we have a couple of newcomers, Josh Yaretz and Matt Emery in the next round, or next matchup against Brendan Marks and Dave Chestikov. They did not beat Brandon and Dave, but the fact that they qualified is quite impressive because I don't know that I recognize those names from the Pro Series. I recognize them from Candlepin for Kids.
I know Yaretz. I'm not really entirely sure who Matt Emery is. I don't think. If I fell over him, I probably wouldn't even know that happened.
Well, we can say it's good to see some new names then.
Yaretz qualified second overall individually at a 682.
That's pretty impressive. I believe he's quite young, in the range of 20 to 22 or something like that. All right, so on the other side of the bracket, we have of course, this is the top 16 made this bracket, so we have a total of eight matchups. John McDonald and Brian Kroll took on John Blaze and Tina Ward. John Blaze is not a name I'm terribly familiar with, but Tina Ward, of course, is monstrous on the women's Candlepin front. Rich, do you know John Blaze?
I spoke to him briefly at Park Place.
Okay.
He was, if memory serves, if it's the same guy that I actually talked to, because there was another kid named John that
okay.
I had just met at Park Place. He was in Virginia for a long time, and he said he's finally back up here and he's bowling again.
Well, that's the New England way.
That's how you got to get people back into this. These events.
Agreed, and you need to get the young kids involved as well, which we all know. And shout out to Candlepin for Kids for doing such a great job with that. Robbie Taylor. Gauthier, Shu is not with it anymore, or he's not as involved. But I know the program is still running pretty strongly. Next matchup, we have our champions, Mark Ricci and Brian Fuller, took on Peter Pereira and Nick Norcross. That, I feel, is a monstrous match.
Yeah.
That is probably the match I would have watched if I were at Leda Lanes that day during that round.
It's a perfect mix of two fiery bowlers in Pereira and Ricci, and then you have two no-nonsense. They just go up and throw and do their business in Fuller and Norcross. So you have the perfect mix for both of those teams.
And I think that each guy kind of feeds off each other when that happens. And that's kind of what you need for a good team or at least a good combination of bowlers. Jeff Surratt and Dave Barber took on Mark Smith and Brian Purdy, both of Maine. Surratt and Barber lost to Mark Smith and Brian Purdy. I can't say that that's terribly surprising. Mark Smith and Brian Purdy are both pretty dangerous on the lanes. But so are Dave Barber and Jeff Surratt. It just looks like they couldn't get things going. What would you say about that, Rich?
I mean, I was bowling 2 lanes over from Mark and Brian.
Okay.
And they bowled. They had one string. I remember them struggling. I can remember them discussing how they were going to come out the next string flying, and I'm pretty sure they followed it up with a 250, 260 or something like that. They went crazy.
Sure, okay.
I know that Brian I've witnessed him be a very clutch bowler in the Pro Series. He had to throw a triple to win the semifinal round at the random draw doubles at Lakeside.
I remember that.
And then he ended up winning it with Evan Mazzaferro in the finals.
I believe that was October of 2012.
Yes.
Okay, so the last matchup of this bracket, or this round, Stu Bergman and Jason Double Guns Doucette against Skip Easterbrooks and Brian Feast. Look at this score here. We have Brian Feast and Skip Easterbrooks, 283, explosive. There's really not much Doucette and Bergman can do about that. They were just on fire, so...
they're champions as well. They have won a doubles event, Brian and Skip.
Sure.
So, they have the experience. They've been there before. I think they've won 2.
Okay.
And as of Friday evening before the event, Jason Doucette didn't even have a partner.
That's right. He actually posted on the Facebook group that he did not have a bowler.
He got together with Stu, and to make the cut, that's it's a pretty good accomplishment.
Yeah, you could say that.
12 hours before the event.
Not a bad pickup there. Okay, so next round of this bracket, we have Skip Easterbrooks and Brian Feast. They defeated Mark Smith and Brian Purdy 214 to 202. Quite a close match there. You'd expect that from both of those teams, but perhaps higher scores between the two of them. Just above them, we have Mark Ricci and Brian Fuller, our champions. A 273 out of those two. Against John Blaze and Tina Ward's 247. Brian Fuller just came up huge in this bracket round. I don't know what his total was for the however many strings they bowl, but he was just on fire.
Qualified with a 617, and then he threw 576 in the 4 knockout rounds.
That's quite impressive. That's 4 strings for 576 is a lot to say. Okay, so moving on, we have Mark Ricci and Brian Fuller again against Skip and Brian Feast, 273 to 251. Another relatively close match considering how high scoring they were. Okay, so let's look at the other competing side of the bracket. Sean Morrison and Chris Sargent against Mark Gregory and Jim Ayotte. Look at these scores here. Chris Sargent threw a 170 for combined 287 with Sean Morrison. A 170, Rich.
That's just amazing. And we've seen him do that time and time again.
Oh, yeah. It's like a day at the park for Chris Sargent. There's no more you can say about that, really.
And a 241's a good score.
It is.
That wins a lot of head-to-head matchups.
Sure it does.
More than enough.
Yep. Craig Holbrook and Bob Whitcomb against Brendan Marks and Dave Chestakov at 229 to 205. Brendan Marks and Dave Chestakov went through to face Sean Morrison and Chris Sargent. Sean Morrison in this round was the one with the big string at a 140 for combined 249 to Brendan Marks and Dave Cheskakov's 242. That's quite a close match.
Absolutely.
Especially for one string bowling.
Brendan Marks and Chestakov might be one of the toughest pairs to bowl against. They're those type of guys that they think especially Chestakov thinks he can make any shot there is. Just any time there's not a strike, I can make the spare. And you just have to love to watch him bowl.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever seen Chestakov not be confident, and you got to admire that because his talent reflects it. So we come to the final match: Sean Morrison and Chris Sargent against Mark Ricci and Brian Fuller. We have Mark Ricci throwing a 144 and Brian Fuller a 150, topping out his own partner, combined 294 to Sean Morrison's 122 and Chris Sargent's 152 for a 274. That's quite an impressive match. You throw a 274 and you get beat by 20, Rich.
I know. Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah, needless to say, Mark Ricci and Brian Fuller deserved what they got for the day, putting up scores like that.
You have to have the luck of the draw too. I mean, it has to be a situation where you catch the right guys at the right time. You look at some of those scores. There were some big games that there weren't. There were some other games that weren't that high. So you catch the right pair at the right time, you can sneak by and you can get momentum and it can carry you to the finals.
That's absolutely correct, Rich. I'd agree with you 100%. So that's our recap of the Pro Series doubles event at Leda Lanes this weekend. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments, please comment down below on the website, alleychat.frankface.net. Stay tuned, folks. We're going to take a quick break and come back to talk about the Classic Candlepins Ladies Ladder up next. Hello and welcome everyone to Alley Chat. This is the internet's only podcast about Candlepin bowling. My name is FrankFace. I'm joined here with my co-host Rich Limone. Tonight we're going to cover the Classic Candlepins Ladies Ladder series that's coming up. Today is the 12th of February. The taping is occurring this coming Monday. Rich, what do you think is going to happen? We have 5 good bowlers. All of them are known within the ladies Candlepin bowling community.
I mean, it's a good ladder. You got 5 strong bowlers. The beauty of this format is that anything can happen. You look at your first match and it's going to be, the way this works, it's a ladder and there's 5 strings to get in and the top 5 make the ladder. The 5 seed faces the 4 seed and so on. The winner faces 3. So, your first matchup of Melissa Casey and Joanne Rosano, you got one veteran. And Melissa's a veteran in her own right.
A young veteran.
A young veteran, that's for sure. And so anything can happen between these two ladies. I've seen them throw huge games, just
Absolutely.
like the men do. So I mean, it's no different for them than it is for us, and it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight. And I'm going to go, for my prediction here, I'm going to go with the older experience, even if it is her own house, I'm going to go with Joanne in this match.
Okay, so that brings us to our next point. Let's have a little bit of fun with this. Rich and I drew up some predictions on this ladder. So for the first round, we have Joanne Rosado versus Melissa Casey. Rich has already stated that he's going with Joanne, despite the fact that Melissa's bowling in her home house. Not only does she bowl there, but she operates the house as well. I think she's probably going to defeat Joanne. I know that's no disrespect to Joanne. After seeing how Melissa's come back, she had an injury a couple of years ago with her knee. She's been having a lot of fun getting back to bowling, and I just think she's ready to find her groove again. I think she's ready to attack the lanes the way she used to. I'm going to give this one to her. I think she's gonna beat Joanne.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion.
Okay, I certainly hope so. So if that were the case, we'd have Melissa Casey against Janet Pock. I've seen Janet Pock not only on TV when I was a little kid on Channel 5. She won some matches on TV too, if I'm not mistaken. For that reason, I'm going to go with Janet Pock beating Melissa Casey. I just think she has the experience, the composure. She just knows how to bowl. There's no argument about that.
Oh yeah, she's deadly. I mean, she's got everything you need. She's got the power. She's got the finesse. She can cut pins. She can do everything on the lane.
Right.
I also think Joanne, after 6 strings, because you go right on to the next match. I think Janet will hold on to her 3 seed and advance against Nikki.
Interesting. So though we disagree in the first match, we agree in the second match that Janet Pock will make it on to Nikki McKeever. Nikki McKeever is part of Vestal clan, if I'm not mistaken. She's related to Nance and Becca Vestal, Ben Vestal, all that group. A very well-known name within the Candlepin community. She came in at the 3rd seed, if I'm not mistaken. Second. Okay. I think we'll have an interesting match there. I think the way it worked, I wasn't there at the roll-off, of course, but my perception of this is that Janet at a 550 had a bad day, and Nikki had a good day at a 574, I believe, just because of the experience Janet has and the pressure she's been under the lights, on camera. I think she's going to go to the final match. Rich, what do you think?
I actually disagree.
You disagree? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Nikki's a great bowler. Janet is great in her own rights. I mean, it's not is one adjective better than the other.
Sure.
On paper, Janet does have the accolades, absolutely. Nikki is my teammate for the Mixed Worlds. It's a tournament that's held in Park Place in June.
Sure.
Some teams from Canada come down. I mean, she bowls great in that tournament, and I know Park Place is different than Riverwalk. I mean, that's a whole different conversation we can have altogether.
Sure.
But I think it's another situation of now Janet going for 6 strings and Nikki being fresh. I think Nikki might have the slight advantage, and she appeared to have done slightly better on the roll-off, so she has that advantage of being the second seed and being able to bowl second, so she'll have the fate in her hands in the last 2 boxes if it's a close match.
That's an interesting point, Rich. And over time, when you do bowl for so long, that can take a toll on you and your body. And then, of course, once that starts happening, you have the mental aspect where you're not so sure if you can continue, and you start missing pins or putting the ball where you want to put it. So interesting. You're saying that Nikki will make it to the finals. Against Tina Ward, who threw a 600 even in the roll-off. I'll let you go first, Rich. Who do you think's going to win between those two?
I have a feeling that in this situation, on any given day, I think Nikki could beat Tina.
Sure. Okay.
But I think in a situation of having a battle with Janet Pock in the round before, it's going to take its toll on Nikki. And I think Tina, at this situation of being the fresh bowler, as well as having the top seed, and Tina is amazing in her own right. I mean,
absolutely.
She tears up Masons, and that's a tough house.
You could say she tears up the entire Women's Pro Tour. She's just all over the lanes, winning events, going to the finals, and that's why I have her winning this ladder. That's my pick, Tina Ward, to win this ladder.
I think Tina's going to hold her own, and I think she's going to win.
Yeah, like you said, that is the advantage of having the top seed. She'll be fresh. She'll be ready to go. 3 strings is a lot different than throwing 9 strings, So totally different ball game. So we've agreed a bit, we've disagreed a bit, but we've come to a conclusion collectively that Tina Ward will likely win this, in our opinion.
Hopefully my co-anchor, Kyle Bruce, will be able to make fun of me at the Classic Candlepins if I'm
I hope
wrong.
he does. I hope he does, because
so
he and I enjoy making fun of you, Rich.
I know you do.
Okay, so Rich, any closing remarks on this ladder series that we have coming this Monday?
I think it should be exciting to watch. I mean, it's going to be fun to call, and I love watching those ladies bowl.
Sure,
it's time.
I'm honored to be asked to call the match with you guys. I'm very excited to do so. We'll have some great programming out of Classic Candlepins in the next couple weeks or so. So stay tuned for that. Up next, folks, we're going to cover Week 22 of the Friday Night Pro League. You're listening to Alley Chat, the internet's only Candlepin bowling podcast. Hi everyone, welcome back to Alley Chat, Candlepin Bowling's only internet podcast. I'm joined here with my co-host, Rich Limone. In this segment, we're going to be talking about the Friday Night Pro League. We have completed Week 22. We're well past the halfway point now. Rich, what happened this week? Any big changes in the standings or anything like that?
Standings are actually pretty tight in certain groups. I mean, the top four are battling like crazy. I mean, Lucky has been holding on to that first position pretty much the entire time.
Yeah, pretty much the whole year.
2, 3, 4, and 5 have moved all around. 20th Century has had some struggles as of recently, so they've dropped out of the top four. But they've got a firm grip on the 5 spot. So the top teams are the top teams for a reason, and it's fun to watch them bowl. It's tough to bowl against them, that's for sure.
It absolutely is. That's very true. And you can see the top four. We have Lucky at 142, Academy at 131, Central at 130. Academy 2 at 128 points. Then we have kind of a drop-off, like you were saying, with 20th Century. They're down in 5th place at 112, which is still not a bad place to be, but the last couple of years or so, maybe 3 years, they've been up in the top 4. Rich, what can you say about that big drop-off? Do you think that there's anything going on? And also, can we say how impressive Academy 2 has been this year?
Well, I mean, let's talk about 20th Century for right now. I mean, they're great bowlers. They're Hall of Fame bowlers. They're amazing. They're fun to watch. They're a great team. And so when you can come in and take 2 or 4 from them, that's an accomplishment. So, we went through a stretch where we were bowling really well, and we took 6 from them. We've never taken more than 2 points from them. So, it was one of those nights where we felt like, wow, we finally arrived. We took 6 from these guys, and they bowled us tough as nails, and we managed to keep up with them, and in fact, we took 6. I mean, that's a great night as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's quite impressive.
You take 4 from 20th Century, you should go have a party. Teams like us that are now taking points from these teams that we couldn't take points from before when we first started a few years ago, things are changing. It's a power shift where some of the teams are improving, which is what you want to see in this league.
And who is us, Rich? I mean, obviously you and I know who us is. But,
we bowl Malden 1. Frank is on the shelf right now with an elbow injury, so he would be part of the starting lineup.
Story of my life.
Team has had 3 bowlers that have been intact from the inception. Jay Shiner as well as Brian Fournier. Last year we added Bobby Doherty Sr. and covering for Frank right now is Tony Iannuzzi.
Triple T, the big beef
Triple
bitch.
T. So we're a team of loudmouths and we have fun. And we're winning some matches now that we weren't able to do 2 and 3 years ago when we started as Team Candlewood.
Right, and I've got a comment on that. I mean, obviously I'm there every week, keeping score is the most I can do at this point because of my elbow injury. But we definitely are having a lot of fun. And I think that's what's important about bowling. Of course, there's a professional aspect to it, and you've got to throw your best ball and roll your best game. But you've got to have fun as well. And that's what this game's all about, so...
There's a huge key to being able to alleviate the tension with a joke or say something funny, getting the team laughing, making fun of each other. When it's a tight match, that's when you have to know when to toe the line. And I think we've gotten better at that. I think when we first started out, we were still making fun of each other when we shouldn't have been, and we should have been focusing on the matches when we were only a few pins down or a few pins up, and things didn't go our way initially. So, it's quite a learning experience. And now I feel like with the number of teams that have come in and out over the past couple of years, we're actually almost a veteran team, you'd say.
You could say that, yeah.
Academy 2 is a new iteration of the team. And Dave Mallahan is leading that team right now to top 4 status right now. They're taking names and they're kicking ass. I mean, there's really no other way to describe it.
That is true, and I did want to talk about them a bit. We didn't really know what was going on with the old Academy 2 last year, which was captained by Sal Cognata. Now Dave Mallahan or Dave Hodge got his own team, and they are just all top-tier bowlers. Who are his bowlers, Rich?
Brandon Marks, Dave Chestikov, which we spoke about at the Lita tournament. John McDonald, who is an up-and-coming star right now in the league.
Absolutely.
And their fifth is John Winchell. Who is definitely the veteran presence on the team.
And I must say, Winchell, I see a lot of his posts on Facebook. He likes to talk in the Candlepin chat group. He seems to be having an absolute monster year. We know how good he is, how good he's been in the past, but this year seems like, I don't know how old he is, but age is not creeping up to him.
Yeah, it's just like a renaissance.
Yeah, he's the same guy that he was in his 20s, back on the Candlepin Stars and Strikes. He's just unstoppable. And John himself, we had the opportunity to sit with him at the Candlepin ICBA Awards banquet, the Hall of Fame banquet. How nice of a guy is he?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, he's just great to talk to. He doesn't judge people. He gives a lot of good advice too. He talks about not only how to bowl, but how to be amongst bowlers, how to be a teammate, and so forth. So shout out to John Winchell there.
And, he doesn't sugarcoat anything, which is also a benefit. There's so many people that try to say something nice, and he comes right out and says, like, you missed. Instead of just being like, well, the wood was bad, or you slipped, or you missed.
Yeah, you got to hit him.
You're the only guy that missed a shot. It's not the light in your face. It's not the alley. You missed. And that's a credit to John. He just comes right and says, you missed.
That's the kind of feedback you want to hear. All right, so let's talk about the last week's matchups. Of course, that was week 22. First on the list, we have Riverwalk versus 20th Century. They were at 20th Century. 20th Century took 6 off of Riverwalk. Not terribly large scores, but, what would you expect out of this match, Rich?
I mean, there are some great bowlers on these lanes. It's 20th Century. They've been there for years. They know how to bowl. They know how to win. You look at it as an achievement when you take totals. So they won totals. So effectively they won the match, even if it was, this one particularly was 6-2. So yes, they did win the match. But if it was 4-4 and you take total, we would consider that a win.
Theoretically, you win the match, yeah.
You only had one bowler over 360. So the pins are not flying at 20th Century, that's for sure.
I've noticed that this year it really hasn't seemed to have been a fast house, I guess you could say. And some people hate it, some people love it. I don't mind bowling there. I think it's a good house, nice house. Kova's family does a great job down there. Okay, so next matchup we have Lucky...
Ice cream.
Of course, we cannot forget the ice cream.
The ice cream.
That's perhaps the most important.
It's the only consolation if you lose 8 to 20.
I suppose that's true. You lose 8 and then you pay $25 for your couple pints to take home. Of course, that, like you said, it's a consolation. Okay, so we have Lucky Strike against the new team this year, Norwood, captained by Mike Legender or Lejeune. I'm not sure how he prefers to pronounce his name. Rich, what I think it kind of goes without saying that we could almost expect a sweep out of this match by Lucky, just given the fact of the lack of experience by Norwood, and that's not a knock to them. But they impressed the league. They actually took 2 points off Lucky. Lucky Strike through a 17.98 at Norwood. That seems pretty impressive.
I would say so. I mean, I didn't find it a problem there. There was a lot of bowlers that have been coming up to me on Friday night saying, "Oh, I can't wait for you to go to Norwood and suffer." I'm like, okay, I'd rather, the dentist you suffer. This is bowling. It's fun. This is bowling, yes. So you just go and throw your ball. I mean, you have to be able to make adjustments, and I found that if I didn't throw it as hard, I got more action.
That's just how some places are.
And so then the problem is you get upset and you throw it harder. So you need to be able to maintain that composure. I mean, I didn't tear it up. I threw a 334, but it was a good total that night. We took 8 from Norwood. That ended up being a close match. They bowled us tough. They're a tough team at home, and they're in the same situation that we were in with my first year at Candlewood in 2010 and 11.
Yeah.
That we're trying to find our way. We're trying to find our order. Who bowls anchor? Who bowls first? I remember I went through a phase of bowling first my first year, and I was terrible. And now it's my spot.
Mm-hmm.
When we bowled against Norwood, I bowled against Todd Trumpus. Now they have Matt Grayson there. So, I mean, they're still trying to figure out who their guy is to start off everything. And it's a huge, huge thing when you can have someone like John Boudreau get you right out of the gate with a mark or two every match.
Of course.
Every string.
Let's put it that way. And speaking of Matt Grace, he recently won the Franklin tournament, the New England Candlepin show. So congratulations to him. Okay, so our next match will be Academy 3 against Metro 2 at Metro. I think we expected big scores out of both teams here. We see it on either side. Mark Gregory, when we bowled against him a couple weeks ago at Academy, I overheard him say that this is a home match for him, and I think that's because he does bowl there quite a bit. He bowls very well there. You can see he threw a 418, 143, 146, 129. What do you have to say about Mark Gregory and his team?
I mean, that's what you got to get out of your lead bowler.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, he's tough as nails. He doesn't give you an inch. He's fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a little slow on the lane, but and that can get in your head.
Sure.
Because you're standing there and you're thinking, okay, just throw the ball. It's a piece of wood. It's a plank. Just hit it. And he's slow. He's deliberate, and then he hits it. And now you have to make your shot, and you're a little off kilter because you were waiting to throw.
And we could consider that more bowlers than we probably think are deliberately doing that, which. There's a mental aspect to it. There's a physical aspect to it. You got to hit your pins, but you also have to be mentally focused to hit your pins.
Right.
So that's all part of being a professional. That's all part of strategy. Dave Godwin, 424, right out of the gate with a 155. That string that they threw, the first string, was a 669, followed by the next string at a 675. Pretty big strings.
I mean, I'm more impressed. I mean, yeah, okay, 6 pins. Yeah, I'm more impressed with the 675, but. Their low string was 123 and their high was 146 for that string. So I mean, it was a total team effort, which is what you want to see.
Sure.
That just makes you that much more scary, and they're a scary team. We battled them in the playoffs last year. They have one different bowler they have Joe Smith this year,
right,
and Mike McIntosh last year. But it's pretty much the same team, and they're scary.
Indeed they are, yeah. And then, Kevin Paddington on Metro 2 ended up with a big 158. So Academy 3 ended up taking 6 points off Metro 2.
I mean, credit goes to Metro 2. They took that last string by a pin.
Yeah.
One single pin. I mean,
and
sometimes that's all it takes.
Well, yeah, and those are the matches you want to see. Those are the most exciting matches. Okay, so moving on, we have Woburn 2 against Woburn 1, both home matches, but Woburn 2 was away, technically speaking. And we have some big scores here, too. Artie Gendro, 152 out of the gate. Rich Magnarelli, who, this is his first year. I think the times I've seen him bowl, he's done pretty well. But that's an impressive string, a 157.
Oh, absolutely. From what I understand, when we faced them a couple of weeks ago, they gave him a new set of balls.
Okay.
He's using a different set, and it seems to be paying dividends for him. He bowled pretty well against us. I don't remember exactly what his scores were, but throwing a 157, that's great.
Sure,
150 strings, something to be proud of.
Of course,
especially on Friday night.
Yeah. On the opposite side of that match, we have Mike Machichi with the big 393. I know he's looking for that 400. He'll get it. You'll get it, Mike. Don't worry about it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel bad because I cheered very loudly for his 399, and I still make fun of him to it for this day because his dad made a math error. So his dad's like, he only needs 9 pins, and he gets the 400. So he throws his ball in the third string, 10th box, and gets a 9 drop. And I was like, there you go, Mike, you got it, 400, woo! And then he missed the single and missed the 10, and turned around and said, it's 399. I was like, what? Your dad told me you only needed 9, so
Well, don't be discouraged, Mike. It's coming your way.
Absolutely.
Any time now. It's a matter of time. Next match, we have a split. Central versus Academy 2 at Academy. A monster string in the first string between Mike Morgan and Chris Sargent. The team threw a 685 with a 96 string. Mike Morgan, 163. Chris Sargent, 155. What do you have to say about that, Rich?
I mean, that's just great bowling. I mean, those are amazing scores, and it's nice to see Morgie throwing a big total.
Yeah, I know. This is his first year back, if I'm not mistaken. He took last year off.
Yeah.
And he may have been struggling, kind of trying to find his groove again, and obviously he has. Here it is, 412. Congratulations, Mike.
He's great under pressure, and his ability in the 10th box is some of the finest that I've ever witnessed. I mean, we battled them a few weeks ago at home. We were at Malden, and we were down 70 pins in the third string, and Jay Shiner bowls fourth for us, and in his 10th box we took the lead, and Morgie comes up, and after Jay's fill in the 9th, Morgie comes up, throws a strike in the 10th, gives them the lead back.
Of course.
And he had been struggling the whole night, but when he needs to be tough as nails, he's just one of the best bowlers to watch on the lane.
And I think that's probably the veteran in him speaking. So good for Mike Morgan.
And he's a great teammate.
Oh, of course. He has a great sense of humor, great guy. So like I said, they split 4-4. We have next match is our match. This is another double home match. So Malden 1 versus Malden 2. Malden 1 was the away team. Malden 1, we took 8 points off Malden 2. We have Brian Fournier with 393 for the high for the night. I know he'd been worried about being in a slump for a little while, but I think he's found his groove again.
Oh, yeah, because, 350s, that sucks. Complain about 350 after 350 after 350. He's been bowling great for us in the anchor slot, and, as long as we're giving him a chance, he's bailed us out a few times out there.
Absolutely, he has, yeah. There's a lot to be said about that.
And this good thing is what he's even better at is when we've had the lead, he's done a great job of closing it out.
Right.
I mean, it's a lot, obviously it's a lot harder when you're down 8 pins as opposed to up 8 pins, but given the fact that you still have to perform under pressure being up 8 pins, he's done remarkably well in that spot.
Now, I've known him for 27 years approximately, something like that. I think this is the most confident I've ever seen him on the lane. So you're doing a great job, B. Keep it up.
Especially at Malden.
At Malden. All right, our final match of the week last week was Ron's Ice Cream at Academy 1. So we have, they took 2 points from Academy 1. Chris Harris, he seems to be back in form. Big 410. Let's see, on the other side, we had a high of 390 for Brian Grohl, who I don't believe is full-time. Is he, Rich?
He is. I don't believe so. I mean, we can actually look that up. But I believe he's subbing.
So that's our recap of the Friday Night Pro League Week 22 2015 season. Next week we have Academy 2 at Ron's Ice Cream, Academy 1 at Metro 2, Riverwalk at Woburn 2, Metro 1 at 20th Century, Malden 1, us at Lucky, Malden 2 is at Woburn 1, Central is at Norwood, and Academy 3 has the bye, so they're not bowling. We hope you enjoyed listening to us. Rich, do you have any closing remarks?
It's going to be a tough battle at Lucky. They are probably the fiercest team in their own building, I would say.
Yeah, they've got a handful, literally, 5 guys who are just relentless. And you've got experience there, you've got youth there as well. So, perfect mixture.
And their skills from their 4 and 5 bowler at ridiculing the other team are exceptional as well.
Of course.
With the occasional joke from Baker.
Perhaps. Well, thanks for listening, everyone, to our very first episode of Alley Chat, the web's only Candlepin Bowling podcast. Check us out on the web at alleychat.frankface.net, search for our Facebook page, Alley Chat, and find us on Twitter at alleychat197. We look forward to hearing your comments, and for my co-host, Rich Limone, this is FrankFace.